Hey everyone, this is Sandeep back with another video. And in today's video, I'm going to continue our Spring course. So this is a playlist, which I'm working on. So video by video, I'm going to cover small topics in one video. So the link of the playlist is in the description. If you haven't watched the previous videos, you can go back and watch all those videos. Then probably you can come back to this video. But you can watch this video individually also because I'm going to cover one topic in one video. So today I'm going to talk about three different Spring annotation. The first one is the primary one. The second is a component annotation. And the third one is the component scan annotation. Okay, so I have my IntelliJ open. And in the last video, I think I talked about the bean annotation. We talked about how to name your beans, right? And we talked about no bin definition, exception, and all those things. Let's continue with first. I'm going to start with the primary annotation. So for that, I'm just going to create a new project. Probably I'll create a new project in front of you, and then I'm going to copy and paste all of this code. So let me add a new module here. So I'll go to project structure and I'm going to add a new module here. Let's give it a name of component annotation. I need to correct my spelling. Component annotation. It's getting created in the Spring course 17 example setting. And I'll go with all the same settings, and I'm just going to create it. Component annotation, and I'm going to say yes. Okay, so I got my main file created component inside component annotation, but I'm going to copy and paste the things from the entire source part, from my bean annotation. So that's where we are going to continue. So I'm just going to copy and paste. Okay, override for all. And now inside my main, I have all of these things. If you see here, right, we got the bean, we got the, I need to copy the pom.xml also. So I'm going to copy and paste pom.xml also. And we need to do some changes inside our pom.xml. So I'm going to name this project as component annotation. And we have the beans, right? And we need to see like what is the package and everything. First of all, I'm going to close all of these things which are open here. Okay. So we have the configuration, we have the main file, right? Inside that, I'm just bringing in all the imports. So let me clean up this project first. So let's try bean annotation. We need to look at the component annotation. So let me refresh. Probably we should get that module here, or maybe I think I need to add that module first. So I just want to show you, you might also face all of these things, right? While you're creating all of your modules, right? So I want to show you all that process, so we got the component annotation here. I would have kept the project created, but, it's a good idea to run through it, in front of you. So we got the component annotation now, and let's do a clean install. So that's going to build the project. If everything goes well, I think the project will be created. You see the target folder has been created, and I can run my main.java and we'll see some output. Okay, so we got some error and we need to see why that error has came. Class cannot find symbol class Vodafone. Why? It's not able to find Vodafone because we're importing com CWS bean. Okay, so I got only CWS. There is no com. So maybe I did something wrong. So the package name. So let's rename this package. I can rename it to com.cws. So refactor, and I think now it is looking good. So let's do the clean install again. Looks good. Now let's go back to the main file and try to run it again. Okay, so we are getting the output. Things are working fine. And this helps, I mean, you are also going to face the similar issues, and if you are following this video, I think it will be easy for you also to solve this problem. Okay, so I'll go back to my beans folder and let's talk about this. Sorry, I think I need to go to my app config. So we talked about how we can manage dependencies through Spring. So we are giving all the dependency management part and object creation and object management to Spring using the bin annotation. And so we can create different class type beans, right? Like I have created a bean for Vodafone here, but I have created another bean for Vodafone here. So, and I have named it Vodafone 1. This is Vodafone. And also I have named it using V1 and V2. We can create the integer bean, string bean also, right? So there was a problem, right? When we created the beans, right? So say suppose I go with only bean annotation here. So just bean, and this is also, I'll just put this as a bean. Okay, so now I have two different Vodafone beans. So it's going to conflict, right? And we are going to get some error. So let me do the clean install again. Let's run the main.java. Okay, you see that, right? We got the error. No such bean definition exception. It didn't got the bean related to Vodafone. That's what we are trying to grab inside our main, right? This using the annotation config application context. I'm trying to grab the Vodafone bean, but I put the V1 here. Let's remove that also. And let's do the clean install again. We need to do this clean and install, but later on, when we will create the springboot project, we'll use the hot reloading concept. Until then, I think you need to bear with it. So let's run now. And still I'm getting that error, right? No unique bean definition exception, because I have two different Vodafone bean inside my config and it's getting conflict, right? So I can use, so I want to talk about another annotation where, you can make one of your bean as a primary bean. So primary is another Spring annotation which you can use. So when there is a conflict, right? When there are two different beans of same class type, Spring is going to get confused. Okay, which one to instantiate or which one to create, right? In that case, if I have given this as a primary, it's going to create this Vodafone with this series IMI number, right? 28201. So let's again do the clean install, and this is really easy annotation I wanted to cover, because this can come into your interviews. And why I clicked on package, I need to click on install. This might come in interview, right? And interviewer might ask you about primary annotation, bean annotation. That's why I wanted to cover it. Let's run it. So this is the IMI number, right? So 28201. So if you see here, right, we got 28201 here in the main.java when we are saying sim.2 calling, right? This one. So you can make your, you can make your. So this one is for the first one, right? 1010, and this one is for our own, which we have created. So you can, when there is a conflict, right? When you have two different beans of same type, you can use the primary annotation for that. And that's really easy. Now, I want to talk about the component annotation, which is like, you must be thinking, right? For all, like in your Java project or in your Spring project, you're going to have so many objects. So do you need to create all of these beans or all of this objects, something like this, right? And say suppose you have 1,000 Java objects which you want to manage by Spring, that would be really cumbersome or really difficult job to create all of this, right? All of these functions and then create the instances of all those objects. But behind the scene, even like Spring is creating it, but you have to write all of this code. And I don't think so. This is a good idea, right? So that's why, you don't need to create all of your beans or all of your beans actually by writing all of these functions. There is a annotation in Spring which is called a component annotation, which I am going to use and I'm going to put now. So let's use our geo bean, right? And on that, I'm just going to put the component annotation. That's it. So now I'm calling this as a component. Now, Spring is going to automatically scan for all the classes, okay, which has a component annotation. But we need to tell Spring where you need to go and scan all those packages. So for that purpose, basically we need to do some configuration, right? So inside our app config, so I'll go to my app config and we have the configuration tag here. We need to put one more annotation called component scan. And we need to tell Spring, okay, this is the package where you need to do that component scan. And we know what is a package. We have a package called com.cws.beans. So right now I'm using only for beans. So whatever I have inside my com.cws.beans folder, now Spring is going to go inside that folder and it's going to create all of those beans, which has a component annotation. Now Vodafone doesn't have a component annotation, and that we are creating using this bean annotation. But for Geo, I'm using component. So I didn't write any code inside my app config. You see here, I'm not creating any Geo bean here, right? But we will be having the Geo bean available to us. Okay, so let's see that in action. So I'll go back to my main.java and let's create another. So I'm going to say I'll create a geo sim. Let's call this sim3. And okay, so why we are not getting geo here? It got the form CWS bin. Okay, let me see that. Let's come back to main.java. So I'm creating my geo. Okay, this way. Sim3. Now let's ask that for the context. So now Spring context is going to have all those objects which has a component annotation. So we don't need to worry about it, right? Because Spring is going to create and manage that object which has a component annotation. So I'm going to just say get bean and let's pass geo.class here. And it's going to return me that geo class. Now let's say sim3.calling and then we will say sim3.data. And it should show us the system, the output related to the sim3. So I'm going to just clean and install. Okay, so let's run it again. And there you go, calling using geo, surfing using geo, right? Pretty easy. So you can see, right, I haven't used any primary, I haven't used any bean annotation, I haven't created any geo bin here, right? I just went into my geo.java class and I have just put the component annotation, and inside my app config, I have mentioned like, okay, go ahead and do the scanning inside this beans folder. And if you see the component annotation, create and manage that object. That's what I'm telling Spring here. Now you must be thinking, okay, what is the difference between this bean and the component, right? And there is a hint, right? You can see, look at the syntax, and you can understand when to use which one, right? And this can be a really good interview question where the interviewer can ask you, okay, tell me the difference between the bean annotation and the component annotation and which one you're going to use and when, something like that. So for that, I'm going to jump into my tab and I have created some notes for that. So let's look at what is the difference between the bean and the component annotation. But before looking into my notes, I would say just think about it, take a walk, think about it. Why, when to use bean, when to use component? I know most of the time we're going to use component annotation, but still think about it. Okay, so what's the difference between the bean and component annotation? The first one is multiple instances can be added to the Spring context. So you can use the bean annotation and you can create multiple instances of a particular object or particular class. Why I'm saying that? See, when you use component annotation, you're not using your own new syntax. So if I want to create a new another new GeoSIM with different IMEI number. I cannot do that, right? I cannot create my GeoSIM with the IMEI number. So whatever default IMEI number that that this object has, it's going to get created by that IMEI number only, because I don't have control of creating and managing this object. The component annotation, it has been managed by Spring. But in case of Bean annotation, I have the control, right? Like how I'm creating the Vodafone annotation here, I can specify the IMEI number. Similarly, if I create the geo bin, right? Maybe something like this. If using Bean annotation, I can geo, and I'm going to say geo, something like this. I can create my object geo is equals to new geo, and I can pass my IMEI number here. So I have the control when I use the bean annotation. But when I use the component annotation, I don't have the control, right? So that's the advantage you get when you use the @bean annotation, but not with the component annotation. So only one instance can be added to the Spring context when you use the component annotation. Obviously, the next one is really important, right? You're writing more code in case of bean annotation, right? So you have seen, right? We have to write that function, we have to create our object. That's more code, and obviously you don't like to do that. But in case of component annotation, you write less code. The next one, I already hadn't touched upon it. You get control of bean creation. Obviously, when you use bean annotation, you're creating the bean yourself. You're passing the arguments to the constructor, but you lose the control as the bean is created by Spring, right? So you don't have the control on that part. And the last one is you can create beans of string integer type when you use the bean annotation, right? So we have seen the example, right? Again, I'll show you maybe. We have created the beans for the string, right? And for the integer type. But in case of component annotation, you don't get the control to create the beans of string, integer, and all those Java data type. So take a screenshot probably of this, or just go through all of these my notes, and this could be a really good interview question. What is the difference between the bean and the component annotation? Okay, so I think that's it. I think that these are the things I wanted to cover in this part of the video. I talked about the primary annotation, right? So you can make any bin primary. I made one of the Java class as a component, and have specified that component through a component's can annotation. So we covered 3 different annotations here, and I'm going to continue more annotation or more things about Spring in the next part of the video. I hope you understood this part of the video, right? And that's it. I think thanks for watching the video. I'll see you in the next part of this series. Until then, you take care and goodbye.